The massive chamber stretched out before Henry Morrison like a cathedral built for giants. He stood alone on a small platform that floated in the center of the room, while hundreds of alien beings watched him from their seats arranged in circles around him. Some of these creatures had skin that glowed with soft light. Others looked like they were made from living metal or crystal. A few resembled animals from Earth, but with too many eyes or limbs that bent in wrong directions. This was the Galactic Council, and today they would decide the fate of humanity. Henry had served as Earth's ambassador for 8 years. He had argued and pleaded and negotiated with these aliens who saw humans as dangerous children, playing with weapons they did not understand. He had tried to explain that humanity had grown past its violent history, and that they deserved a place among the stars. Nobody had listened. The Council had already made up their minds long before this final hearing. Supreme Arbitrator Velkoth rose from the highest seat in the chamber. The being looked like a massive sculpture carved from purple glass that somehow lived and moved and spoke. Its voice echoed through the room without needing a mouth or any visible way of making sound. Henry had learned not to be surprised by such things anymore. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding the human petition for membership and continued contact with civilized space, Velkoth announced. We have reviewed 30 years of human activity in Council territory. We have examined your history and your nature. We have debated extensively about the risks your species presents to the established order of galactic civilization. Henry stood perfectly still. He already knew what was coming. The signs had been obvious for months. Meetings that got canceled at the last minute. Trade agreements that stalled for no clear reason. Other ambassadors who stopped making eye contact in the corridors. The Council had been preparing to cut humanity loose, and everyone except Earth's diplomats seemed to know it was coming. Humanity is declared incompatible with Council membership, Velkoth continued. Your species demonstrates persistent aggressive tendencies. Your historical records show constant warfare among your own people. Even now, as you reach for the stars, you bring weapons and suspicion with you. The Council has voted to establish a quarantine zone around your home system. You have 30 days to recall all human vessels and personnel from Council space. After that deadline, any human ship that crosses the barrier will be destroyed without warning or negotiation. The chamber filled with a sound like wind chimes mixed with radio static. Henry realized it was alien applause. These beings were celebrating the banishment of his entire species from the galactic community. He felt a flash of anger hot enough to make his hands shake, but he forced it down. Getting emotional now would only prove their point about human aggression. Ambassador Morrison, you may speak if you wish to respond, Velkoth said. Henry took a slow breath and activated the communicator implanted behind his ear. The device was human technology and far more advanced than anything the Council knew humanity possessed. That was the secret that would change everything. For 30 years, human diplomats and scientists and traders had been among the aliens, while carefully pretending to be less advanced than they really were. They had asked innocent questions and taken detailed notes and built extensive files on every species in the Council. They had prepared for this exact moment. Ambassador Morrison to Earth Command, he said clearly so every translator in the room would pick up his words. They have made their choice. Begin Protocol Exodus. The crystalline form of Velkoth flickered with colors that Henry had learned meant confusion. You prepared for this outcome? The arbitrator asked. We prepared for every outcome, Henry replied. Humanity thanks the Council for making this decision simple. You could have accepted us as equals and gained strong allies. You could have worked with us to build something better than what you have now. Instead, you chose fear and isolation. That tells us everything we need to know about the Council and about our future relationship with you. You speak as if you have a choice in this matter, said Ambassador. Creel of the Moralian Union, the creature, looked like an oversized lobster covered in jeweled armor. The quarantine is not optional. It is a mercy. The alternative was complete destruction of your homeworld. Henry smiled, and the expression seemed to make several nearby aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. Humans had learned that their facial expressions often unsettled other species. A human smile with teeth showing looked like a predator preparing to bite. You are correct that we have no choice about the quarantine, Henry agreed.
The barrier will go up and we will respect it.
But you have also given us something valuable. You have released us from any obligation to follow Council laws or respect Council territory claims. You have made it clear that humanity must survive and thrive on our own. We accept these terms completely. Within hours, the recall order went out to every human in Council space. Diplomats packed their offices and said quick goodbyes to the few aliens who had become genuine friends. Traders loaded their ships with the last legal purchases they would make from council suppliers. Scientists gathered their research and deleted anything that might give the council insight into human capabilities. Military observers who had been carefully studying alien defensive systems began their journey home with detailed reports ready to file. The evacuation moved with efficiency that impressed even hostile council members. Every human ship and station in council space emptied out in less than 2 weeks. The few alien observers who paid close attention noticed something interesting. The humans were not panicking. They were not begging for more time or negotiating for exceptions. They were simply leaving with calm determination and maybe just a hint of satisfaction. Commander Lisa Yang oversaw the final stages from her position on the space station that orbited Jupiter's moon Europa. She watched the display screens showing human vessels arriving back in solar system space. Cargo ships heavy with alien technology that would be studied and reverse-engineered. Research vessels carrying data files full of scientific knowledge. Military ships whose crews had memorized the strengths and weaknesses of every council defense system they had observed. All personnel accounted for, her second officer reported. The last transport cleared council space 18 minutes ago. Good, Lisa said. Begin phase 2. I want every shipyard at maximum production. Every research facility gets unlimited resources. Every military unit goes to active training status. The council thinks they have caged us, but they have actually just freed us from the need to play nice and follow their rules. The barrier went up exactly 30 days after the council's announcement. It was an energy field that surrounded Earth's entire solar system, like an invisible wall. Any ship trying to cross it would be detected and destroyed by automated weapons platforms the council had positioned around the perimeter. It was meant to be an impenetrable prison that would keep humanity contained forever. The council expected to hear desperate pleas from Earth within months. They expected humans to realize their mistake in acting defiant. They expected humanity to beg for a second chance at membership if only the council would lift the quarantine. Instead, they got silence. Complete and absolute silence. No messages. No attempted barrier breaches. No communications of any kind. Humanity had vanished behind their wall as if they had never existed at all. Supreme Arbitrator Velkoth found this silence more disturbing than any threat or complaint would have been. But the council had made its decision. The vote was recorded. Humanity was banished, and that was the end of the matter, except it was only the beginning. 6 months passed since the barrier activated around Earth's solar system, and the Galactic Council heard nothing from humanity. No angry messages demanding justice. No desperate pleas for the quarantine to be lifted. No attempts to break through the energy wall that imprisoned them. The silence was complete, and somehow that made many council members more nervous than any threat would have. Commander Lisa Yang stood in the observation deck of the military station orbiting Mars and watched construction drones swarm around the skeletal frame of a new warship. The vessel was already larger than anything humanity had built before the quarantine, and it was only half finished. Dozens more just like it were taking shape in shipyards scattered throughout the solar system. Earth's moon housed 3 massive construction facilities. The asteroid belt had been converted into an industrial zone with miners and fabricators working around the clock. Even Venus, despite its hellish atmosphere, now had orbital platforms churning out weapons and armor plating. Production is ahead of schedule on all fronts, her operations officer reported. We will have the first battle group ready for deployment in 3 months. Lisa nodded but did not take her eyes off the construction. Before the quarantine, humanity had been building exploration vessels and cargo haulers and science ships, designed to impress the council with peaceful intentions. Now they built warships without apology or pretense. Every vessel that rolled out of the shipyards was designed for one purpose, which was combat and survival in a hostile galaxy. How are the research projects progressing? Lisa asked. Dr. Carl Jensen says the faster-than-light drive project will be ready for testing within 2 weeks. The new version should jump twice as far as anything the Zephyros use, and it will not leave the energy signature that makes council ships so easy to track. Lisa smiled at that news. The Zephyros had been so proud of their superior faster-than-light technology. They had shared basic information about it with junior members of the council as a way of showing off their scientific advancement. What they did not know was that human scientists had been studying their ships very carefully during those 30 years of diplomatic contact. Every docking procedure and every maintenance cycle and every careless conversation between Zephyros engineers had been observed and recorded and analyzed. Humanity had not just copied Zephyros technology. They had improved it. That was what humans did best, which was taking something that worked and making it better through relentless testing and innovation. The Council species had grown comfortable with their technology. They made small improvements every few decades and saw no reason to rush. Humans could not afford that luxury. They had been given a deadline and a challenge, and those two things focused human effort like nothing else could. Carl Jensen worked in a research facility hidden deep inside the asteroid Ceres. The entire rock had been hollowed out and converted into a laboratory where hundreds of scientists pursued projects that would have terrified the Galactic Council. Improved weapon systems, advanced artificial intelligence, genetic enhancements for human soldiers, dimensional technology that could potentially bypass the quarantine barrier entirely. "We have been given a gift," Carl told his research teams during their weekly briefing. "The Council thinks we are trapped and helpless. They believe we will waste away in isolation until we become irrelevant. What they do not understand is that they have removed the one thing holding us back, which was the need to appear peaceful and non-threatening. Now we can pursue every dangerous idea and every aggressive technology without worrying about alien approval." The Energy Shield project had been particularly successful. The Krelok species used defensive barriers on their military vessels, but the shields consumed enormous amounts of power and failed quickly under sustained attack. Human engineers had studied the Krelok's technology and found ways to make the shields regenerate faster by absorbing incoming energy and redirecting it. A human warship could now take a beating that would destroy 3 Krelok's vessels and still keep fighting. The artificial intelligence development caused heated debates among the research teams. Many alien species had tried to create true artificial intelligence and failed or created monsters that turned against their makers. The Vin had succeeded in building helpful AI, but their creations were limited by programming restrictions that made them slow to adapt. Human programmers took a different approach by creating AI systems that could learn and evolve, but remained loyal through fundamental core values rather than restrictive code. The first test results were promising, though some scientists worried about potential risks. "We are playing with fire," one researcher warned during a meeting. "We have always played with fire," Carl replied. "That is how humans learn to cook food and forge metal and eventually build rockets. We do not avoid danger. We master it." Admiral Patricia Cole commanded what was now officially called the Earth Defense Fleet, though everyone knew it would not stay defensive for long. She reviewed tactical reports and ship specifications and smiled at what humanity had accomplished in just 6 months of focused effort. The fleet was not ready to challenge the entire Galactic Council, but it no longer needed to be. Humanity had different plans. "The barrier is not as impenetrable as the Council believes," her chief science officer explained during a strategy session. "The energy field operates on specific frequencies that we have mapped completely. Our new ships can phase through dimensional space that the barrier cannot touch. We have tested it 3 times now on small unmanned probes. All 3 successfully passed through the barrier without triggering any alarms." "How long until we can move a crewed vessel through?" Patricia asked. 2 months if we want to be completely safe. 1 month if we are willing to accept some risk." "We will accept the risk," Patricia decided. "I want a stealth ship ready to cross the barrier in 1 month. Small crew, best people. Their mission is to scout beyond Council space and find suitable locations for colonies. We are not going to sit in this cage forever." The Council had made a critical mistake by assuming humanity would behave like other species. When the Draxi had been quarantined 4,000 years ago, they had accepted their isolation and eventually died out. When the Kelton faced banishment, they had begged for mercy until the Council relented. The Council expected humans to follow one of these patterns, but humans were different in ways the aliens did not understand. Humans did not accept limitations. They found ways around them. Humans did not give up when faced with impossible odds. They got creative. Humans did not wait for permission to do what needed to be done. They acted and dealt with consequences later. Earth itself had transformed in those 6 months. Every government and every corporation and every research institution focused on the same goal, which was survival and advancement. Political differences were set aside. Economic competition took a backseat to cooperation. Humanity had faced extinction-level threats before in their long history, and they always responded the same way by uniting against the common enemy and refusing to surrender. The lunar colonies expanded at a rate that would have been impossible before the quarantine. New habitats were constructed to house the workers flooding in from Earth. Manufacturing facilities produced components for ships and weapons and space stations. Agricultural domes grew food to feed the increasing population living off-world. Humanity was spreading throughout their solar system like a rising tide that nothing could hold back. Trade between Earth and the various colonies flourished as resources moved to where they were needed most. The asteroid belt provided metals. Mars offered living space and research facilities. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn became fuel depots for ships using hydrogen and helium. Even distant Neptune had value with its extreme environment, serving as a testing ground for equipment that needed to function in hostile conditions. "We are building an empire in miniature," Lisa Yang observed during a tour of the Mars industrial complex. "Everything we need to survive and grow is right here in our own system. The Council gave us a prison, but we are turning it into a fortress," her aide agreed. "When we finally break out, they will not be ready for what we have become." Supreme Arbitrator Velkoth monitored the barrier sensors from the Council headquarters on the distant world of Zenthar Prime. The readings showed no activity from the human side. No ships approaching the energy wall. No communication attempts. No signs of construction near the barrier perimeter. Everything appeared quiet, and that worried Velkoth more than any amount of frantic activity would have. "Perhaps the humans have accepted their fate," suggested Ambassador Creel. "No," Velkoth replied with certainty. "They are planning something. I can feel it. The question is what and when." But the Council had voted. The decision was recorded, and changing course now would make the Council appear weak or uncertain. So they maintained the quarantine and waited, and watched the silent barrier while behind it humanity, prepared for a future the aliens could not imagine. The mining colony of Talvex Prime existed in comfortable isolation at the edge of explored space. 7,000 Zephyros colonists lived and worked there, extracting rare minerals from the asteroid fields surrounding their small outpost. They had operated peacefully for 300 years without incident or danger. The nearest Council patrol station was 6 weeks away by faster-than-light travel. The colony director, Shemra, had never worried about that distance until the day unknown ships appeared on their sensors. "Multiple contacts at the system edge," the sensor operator announced with confusion clear in his translated voice. "Configuration unknown. They are not responding to our hails." Shemra moved to the command center viewing screen and felt her crystalline body structure resonate with concern. The approaching vessels looked wrong somehow. Their hulls were too smooth and their engine signatures did not match any known Council design. Pirates perhaps, but this far from civilization was unusual even for desperate raiders. "Send the emergency beacon to Council space," Shemra ordered. "Activate all defensive systems we have." The colony had minimal defenses because no one expected attacks this far out. A few old automated turrets, some mining lasers that could be repurposed as weapons, shields designed to protect against asteroid impacts rather than military-grade weapons. Against a determined assault, they would last maybe 10 minutes before the colony was exposed and helpless. The unknown ships accelerated toward Talvex Prime with clear hostile intent. Shemra watched them approach and calculated that her people had perhaps 4 hours before the attackers reached weapons range. The emergency beacon was broadcasting, but help would not arrive for weeks. She began preparing evacuation procedures, knowing they had nowhere to evacuate to, but needing to do something other than wait for death. Then something impossible happened. Space twisted and rippled at 3 points between the colony and the approaching attackers. New ships emerged from faster-than-light transit with a precision that made Shemra's sensors officer gasp in surprise. These vessels were different from the first group. They were angular and aggressive with weapon ports clearly visible along their hulls. The design was efficient and deadly with no wasted space for comfort or decoration. "New contacts have positioned themselves between us and the raiders," the sensor operator reported. "They are hailing us on standard frequencies." "Put it through," Shemra ordered while trying to understand what was happening. "This is Captain Ryan Foster of the Earth Colonial Fleet." A voice came through clearly in flawless Zephyros language. Unknown vessels, you need to break off your attack immediately or you will be destroyed. Shemra felt shock ripple through her entire being. Earth? Humans? That was impossible. The quarantine had been in place for over a year. Human ships could not possibly be this far from their home system. Yet there they were on her sensors and speaking her language and positioning themselves to defend her colony from attackers. The pirate vessels responded with weapons fire directed at the human ships. It was a fatal mistake. The human vessels moved with speed and grace that seemed impossible for ships of their size. Their weapons reached out with devastating accuracy. Energy beams punched through pirate shields like they were made of paper. Missiles tracked their targets with intelligence that suggested advanced artificial guidance systems. In less than 4 minutes, the engagement was over. 8 pirate vessels had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris and metal fragments. The human ships maintained their defensive position for several minutes while their sensors swept the area for additional threats. Then the lead vessel approached the colony slowly with weapons powering down in what seemed to be a gesture of peace. Talvex Prime, you are secure, Captain Ryan Foster announced. We have been patrolling this region for the past 2 months. It appears the Council's reach does not extend as far as it used to. Shemra struggled to form a coherent response. You violated the quarantine, she finally managed to say. The Council established a barrier around your system. How are you here? Why are you here? The barrier is still in place, Ryan replied calmly. We found a way around it. As for why we are here, the answer is simple. We are expanding into unclaimed space and protecting those who need protection. Your colony is outside Council patrol range. Someone needs to keep the peace out here. But the Council will respond with force if they learn of this, Shemra warned. You are violating the terms of your quarantine. The Council is welcome to try stopping us, Ryan said, and Shemra could hear something like amusement in his voice. But Director, you might want to ask yourself an important question. Where was the Council when you needed them? We were here. We saved your people and your colony. I suggest you remember that when you file your report. One of the human ships detached from the formation and approached even closer. A smaller vessel emerged from its docking bay and moved toward the colony's main airlock. We are sending over medical supplies and some replacement parts for your defensive systems, Ryan explained. No charge. Consider it a goodwill gesture from humanity. We also have some information about pirate activity in this region that might help keep your people safe. The supply transfer took less than an hour. The humans were efficient and professional. They delivered the promised supplies along with data files containing detailed intelligence about criminal operations in the outer regions. Then they prepared to depart as quickly as they had arrived. Will we see you again? Shemra asked before the connection was cut. Probably, Ryan replied. We are establishing regular patrol routes through this sector. If you need help in the future, you can reach us on the encrypted frequency we just sent to your communication system. Earth Colonial Fleet out. The human ships jumped away into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind a colony full of confused but living Zephyros citizens. Shemra immediately began composing her report to Council authorities, knowing this incident would cause significant problems. Humans were not supposed to be free. They were not supposed to have advanced ships or weapons. They certainly were not supposed to be patrolling Council border regions and rescuing colonies. That the Council itself had left vulnerable. News of the Talvex Prime incident spread through Council space, faster than anyone expected. Other reports began filtering in from remote outposts and independent colonies. Human ships had been spotted in 17 different sectors, all far beyond where the quarantine barrier should have contained them. They were not attacking Council vessels, but their presence was undeniable. Some reports described human trading posts. Others mentioned human colonies being established on previously unclaimed worlds. A few spoke of human military patrols protecting shipping lanes from pirates. Supreme Arbitrator Velkoth convened an emergency session of the Council to address the crisis. Representatives from 400 species gathered in the Great Chamber to debate what should be done about humanity's apparent escape from quarantine. How is this possible? Demanded Ambassador Creel. We positioned automated weapons platforms around their entire solar system. We established an energy barrier that no ship should be able to cross. Our monitoring stations show no breaches, yet humans are appearing throughout known space. They found a way around our containment measures, admitted the Zephyros military commander responsible for the barrier project. Our initial analysis suggests they are using some form of dimensional phasing technology that allows their ships to bypass the barrier entirely. The barrier is still active, but it is apparently useless against their vessels. Then we must destroy them, insisted Representative Thox of the Moralian Union. Send our fleets to human space and eliminate this threat permanently. That would require an act of war, Velkoth pointed out, and based on reports of human military capabilities, we cannot be certain of victory. Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their technology appears to have advanced significantly in just 1 year of isolation. They saved Talvex Prime, another representative noted quietly. Our own forces could not have responded in time. The humans did what we failed to do. That is irrelevant, Thox argued. They violated the terms of their banishment. They must face consequences. But what consequences could the Council impose? Their quarantine had failed. Their military might was suddenly questionable. Their authority in remote regions was clearly insufficient. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council faced a problem it could not solve through voting or decree. Velkoth adjourned the session without reaching any decision. The council members departed to consult with their home governments and consider their options. Meanwhile, human ships continued to appear in system after system. Sometimes they traded. Sometimes they defended colonists from threats. Sometimes they simply passed through while conducting surveys or establishing supply routes. They were polite but firm. They respected council territory but claimed everything beyond it as fair game for human expansion. Captain Ryan Foster filed his report with Earth Command and allowed himself a small smile. The mission had gone exactly as planned. Talvex Prime would remember that humans had saved them when the Council could not. That memory would spread and others would remember too. Humanity was writing a new story across the stars and the Council could only watch it happen. Intelligence. Director Kate Sanders sat in her office deep within the asteroid base and reviewed the latest reconnaissance reports with satisfaction. Human scout ships had mapped 47 star systems in the past 3 months. 23 of those systems contained habitable planets or valuable resources. 15 were already hosting the first stages of human colonization. The expansion was proceeding faster than even the most optimistic projections had predicted. The Council still believes we are contained, her analysis officer reported. Their monitoring stations around our home system show no unusual activity. They have no idea that we can phase through their barrier without triggering any alarms, Kate nodded and made a note in her report to Admiral Patricia Cole. The dimensional phasing technology had proven even more effective than the research teams had hoped. Human ships could slip in and out of normal space like ghosts. The Council's sensors were designed to detect conventional faster-than-light travel, and they completely missed the unique signature of human dimensional drives. It was the perfect advantage for a species that needed to expand without being immediately detected and stopped. What about the Talvex Prime incident? Kate asked. How is the Council responding to that? They are confused and frightened, the officer replied with barely concealed amusement. Multiple emergency sessions have been called. Representatives are arguing about what actions to take. Some want to declare war on humanity. Others suggest attempting negotiation. Most are simply in denial that we could have advanced so quickly. Good, Kate said. Confusion works in our favor. While they debate, we continue building. Admiral Patricia Cole stood before a massive holographic display showing the current state of human space. The solar system remained heavily fortified with defense platforms and military statae. ONS positioned at strategic points, but the real expansion was happening far beyond Earth. Red markers indicated established colonies. Blue markers showed mining operations. Green markers represented research outposts. Yellow markers were military patrol stations. The display looked like a constellation spreading across previously empty space. We now have 47 colony worlds in various stages of development. Patricia told her command staff during the daily briefing. 16 major mining operations are extracting resources we could never access from our home system. 12 research stations are pushing the boundaries of science in environments that would be impossible to replicate near Earth. Our fleet has grown to include 300 combat-capable vessels plus twice that many in support ships. The Council will eventually respond with force, her chief tactical officer warned. They cannot allow our expansion to continue indefinitely without challenging us. Let them try, Patricia replied. Our ships are faster and more advanced. Our crews train constantly while Council forces have grown soft during centuries of peace. We are not the same species they voted to banish. We have evolved beyond their ability to contain us. The truth was that humanity had learned valuable lessons during their 30 years of contact with the Galactic Council. They had watched how the Council operated. They had studied the military capabilities of member species. They had identified weaknesses and inefficiencies in Council systems. Most importantly, they had realized that the Council's greatest vulnerability was its own bureaucracy. The aliens spent more time debating and voting than actually taking decisive action. Human colonies were being established in regions the Council had declared too dangerous or too difficult to settle. The Draken Expanse was considered a navigation hazard because of gravitational anomalies that disrupted conventional faster-than-light drives. Human dimensional drives bypassed those problems entirely. The Kelrix Nebula was avoided because its radiation levels interfered with most species' biology. Human colonists used advanced shielding and medical treatments to survive there. The Outer Rim territories were dismissed as too far from Council space to be worth the effort. Humans saw opportunity where the Council saw obstacles. Even more significant was humanity's approach to the independent species scattered throughout the galaxy. The Council had a tendency to ignore smaller civilizations that did not meet their membership criteria. Humans actively sought out these species and offered trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The insectoid Klicken were considered primitive by Council standards, but humans recognized their natural talent for complex engineering. The aquatic Neri could not survive on most Council worlds but thrived in the water-rich environments humans were terraforming. The reptilian SSK were dismissed as too aggressive, but humans understood aggression and respected it. We are building something the Council never could, Carl Jensen explained during a research summit attended by scientists from multiple species. The Council demands conformity and obedience. We offer partnership and mutual benefit. Species that could never join the Council are flourishing in human space because we value what they can contribute rather than judging them for what they lack. The Frontier Coalition was forming naturally as more independent species chose to align themselves with humanity rather than seeking Council membership. It started as informal trade relationships but quickly evolved into something more substantial. Human military vessels protected Coalition members from pirates and raiders. Human technology was shared freely with species that proved trustworthy. Human colonies welcomed immigrants from other species who wanted to escape the rigid hierarchy of Council space. Supreme Arbitrator Belkoth requested a private meeting with several key Council members to discuss the human situation, away from the chaos of the main chamber. They gathered in a secure conference room where honest conversations could happen without political posturing. We made a mistake, Belkoth admitted quietly. We assumed humans would react like other species when faced with banishment. We expected them to beg for mercy or fade into obscurity. Instead, we gave them motivation and freedom from our restrictions. They have used both to become something we did not anticipate. We could still destroy them, suggested the Moralian military commander. A coordinated strike on their home system would eliminate the threat permanently. And start a war we might not win, Belkoth countered. Human ships are superior to ours? Their technology advances faster than we can track. Their expansion is accelerating. Even if we could destroy Earth, they have colonies that would survive and seek revenge. We would be trading one problem for a much larger one. Then what do you suggest? Asked Ambassador Creel. We adapt, Belkoth replied. We acknowledge that the galaxy is changing whether we like it or not. Humanity is not going to disappear or submit to our authority. We need to decide if we want them as enemies or if there is another option. But changing course meant admitting the Council had been wrong. It meant accepting that a species they had deemed too dangerous for membership had not only survived their punishment but had thrived because of it. It meant recognizing that the Council's authority was not absolute and its decisions could be challenged by those with sufficient will and capability. Ambassador, Henry Morrison received an unexpected communication request from Supreme Arbitrator Belkoth. The message was marked private and unofficial, which meant the crystalline being was reaching out without full Council authorization. Henry considered ignoring it, but curiosity won out. He accepted the connection from his office on the human station orbiting Mars. Ambassador Morrison, Belkoth began without preamble. We need to talk about the current situation between humanity and the Council. I am listening, Henry replied carefully. Your species has violated the terms of the quarantine on a massive scale, Velkoth stated. You are expanding into regions we consider within our sphere of influence. You are forming alliances with species we have oversight responsibilities toward. You are disrupting the established order that has maintained peace for thousands of years. That is one interpretation, Henry agreed. Here is another interpretation. The Council voted to banish us from your space. We honored that decision. Everything we are doing now is happening outside Council territory, in regions you have neglected or ignored. We are not attacking your worlds or interfering with your trade routes. We are simply building our own civilization in areas you never bothered to claim. You saved Talvex Prime, Velkoth said. That was Council responsibility. That was outside Council patrol range, Henry countered. Your own response time to that colony would have been 6 weeks. Those people would have been dead if we had not intervened. You cannot have it both ways. Either you accept responsibility for protecting every corner of the galaxy, or you acknowledge that there are regions where your authority does not reach. There was a long pause before Velkoth responded. What does humanity want? We want what you denied us, Henry replied. A place among the stars. The right to grow and explore and build without being caged or judged. The Council had a chance to work with us as partners. You chose to cast us out instead. We have accepted that choice and moved forward. The question now is what the Council wants. Do you want to continue treating us as criminals for the crime of refusing to disappear? Or is there another path forward? The Council would never accept humanity as members after this, Velkoth said. We are no longer interested in Council membership, Henry told the arbitrator. We have built something better. 2 years had passed since the Galactic Council voted to banish Earth, and in that time, humanity had transformed from a caged species into a power that rivaled the Council itself. The Frontier Coalition now included 23 different species and controlled over 100 star systems. What had started as desperate survival had evolved into something far more significant, which was a new model for galactic civilization built on cooperation rather than hierarchy. Commander Lisa Yang had been promoted to Fleet Admiral and now commanded a military force of over 800 warships plus support vessels, numbering in the thousands. She stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance and watched her fleet conduct training exercises in the Helios system. Ships from 5 different species flew in coordinated formations that would have been impossible in Council space, where each member insisted on maintaining separate military traditions and command structures. The Klicken squadrons are showing remarkable improvement, her tactical officer reported. Their pilots have natural talent for 3-dimensional combat that surpasses most human crews. The Klicken learn quickly when given proper training and respect, Lisa agreed. The Council saw them as primitive insects not worth their time. We saw potential partners, and now they build half our ships and fly a quarter of our fighters. The truth was that the Frontier Coalition succeeded because it valued contribution over conformity. The aquatic Nere designed water recycling systems that made long space voyages more sustainable. The reptilian SSK provided security forces whose natural aggression was channeled into protecting trade routes. The crystalline Vex offered computational abilities that enhanced artificial intelligence research. Every species brought something valuable, and humanity had learned to recognize and utilize those strengths. Carl Jensen now directed the Coalition Science Institute, which operated from a massive station in neutral space where researchers from multiple species worked together on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. They had achieved breakthroughs in energy generation and medical technology and materials, science that the Council had not managed in centuries of careful, controlled research. The Council's mistake was believing that progress requires caution. Carl explained to a group of young scientists during a lecture. They spent decades debating the safety of every new technology. We tested things quickly and learned from failures instead of fearing them. Yes, we had accidents. Yes, we lost people. But we also advanced faster than anyone thought possible, because we were willing to take risks. The breaking point came when the Kreloks Sovereignty announced they were leaving the Galactic Council to join the Frontier Coalition. The Kreloks were one of the Council's founding members, and their departure sent shockwaves through every Council world. If a species that old and established could abandon the Council, then the entire structure was at risk of collapse. Ambassador Creel resigned his position in protest and relocated to human space, where He took a role as diplomatic advisor to the coalition. Other council members watched nervously as trade agreements shifted and military alliances were reconsidered. The council that had seemed eternal and unchangeable was suddenly looking fragile and outdated. Supreme Arbitrator, Velkoth requested a formal meeting with Ambassador Henry Morrison, and this time the request came with full council authorization. They agreed to meet on a neutral station at the border between council space and coalition territory. Henry arrived in a small but advanced human vessel that made the council security forces nervous just by existing. Ambassador Morrison, Velkoth greeted him in a private conference room far from listening devices and political observers. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I was curious what the council wants after 5 years of silence," Henry replied honestly. "The council wants to discuss the future," Velkoth said. "We have watched your coalition grow. We have seen species leave our membership to join you. We have observed that the galaxy is changing in ways we did not anticipate or desire. You are afraid of becoming irrelevant," Henry stated bluntly. "Yes," Velkoth admitted without hesitation. "The council has maintained order for thousands of years. We believed our system was superior to any alternative. You have proven that belief wrong. The Frontier Coalition offers things we cannot match, which are freedom and opportunity, and rapid advancement. We are losing members and influence while you grow stronger every year. The council voted to banish Earth," Henry reminded the arbitrator. "You said we were too dangerous and too aggressive to be trusted. What has changed?" "We were wrong," Velkoth said, and the admission seemed to cause the crystalline being physical pain. "We judged you by our own standards without understanding what those standards had cost us. We chose safety over innovation. We chose control over growth. We built a system that maintained peace but prevented progress. Humanity showed us a different path even though we tried to destroy you for it." Henry leaned back in his chair and considered the situation. The council was offering something that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago, which was acknowledgement of their mistake and willingness to change. But could the council actually change after thousands of years of operating the same way? "What exactly is the council proposing?" Henry asked. "We want to establish diplomatic relations with the Frontier Coalition," Velkoth explained. "Not as superior to subordinate, but as equals. We want trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. We want to learn from your methods while sharing our accumulated knowledge. We are not asking you to rejoin the council or submit to our authority. We are asking for coexistence and cooperation." "The council spent 5 years pretending we did not exist," Henry pointed out. "Why should we believe this offer is genuine?" "Because the alternative is conflict that would damage both sides," Velkoth replied. "Your military could challenge ours and the outcome is uncertain. Even if the council won, it would be at terrible cost. Even if we lost, it would mean the end of thousands of years of civilization. Neither outcome benefits anyone." Henry stood and walked to the viewing port where he could see both council and coalition ships maintaining their respective sides of the border. 5 years ago, humanity had been alone and desperate. Now they negotiated from a position of strength with options and allies. "I will take your proposal to the coalition leadership," Henry said. "But I want you to understand something clearly. We are not the humans who begged for council membership 35 years ago. We are not even the humans you banished 5 years ago. We have grown and changed and built something that works for us. Any agreement between the council and the coalition will be between equals or it will not happen at all." "I understand," Velkoth assured him. "That is exactly what we are offering." The negotiations took 6 months and involved representatives from every coalition species and dozens of council members. There were arguments and disagreements and moments when everything seemed ready to collapse. But slowly an agreement took shape. The council would recognize coalition territory and sovereignty. Trade would flow between both groups with fair terms for all parties. Military forces would cooperate against common threats like piracy and hostile species. Cultural exchanges would be established so both sides could learn from each other. The final signing ceremony took place on the same neutral station where Henry and Velkoth had first discussed peace. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to witness the moment. Admiral Patricia Cole attended in her dress uniform, standing beside Klicken shipbuilders and Neri scientists and SSK security officers. Carl Jensen was there with his research teams. Kate Sanders observed quietly from the back, making mental notes about everything. "This agreement represents a new era for galactic civilization," Velkoth announced to the assembled crowd. The Council acknowledges that our way is not the only way. We recognize the Frontier Coalition as equals and partners in maintaining peace and fostering progress throughout known space. Henry Morrison signed for humanity and the Coalition. His signature was witnessed by species that had been ignored by the Council for centuries but now stood as valued members of an alliance, built on mutual respect rather than imposed authority. Back on Earth, billions of people watched the ceremony and celebrated their species' journey from judgment to triumph. They had been called too aggressive and too dangerous. They had been banished and expected to fade away. Instead, they had built something better than what they had been denied. Children in schools learned the story of how humanity faced its darkest moment and refused to surrender, how they turned isolation into opportunity, how they found allies among the forgotten and built strength from diversity. The Council had voted to banish Earth, and humans had not hesitated to accept that challenge and transform it into victory. Admiral Lisa Yang stood on the Bridge of Defiance and looked at the mixed fleet under her command. Human ships flew alongside Klicken fighters and Neri cruisers and vessels from a dozen other species.
5 years ago, this would have been impossible.
Now it was normal. Set course for the Andros sector, she ordered. We have new colonies to establish and trade routes to protect. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had been the catalyst for that change. Not through conquest or domination, but through refusing to accept limitations. The Council had tried to write humans out of galactic history. Instead, humanity had written a new chapter that others chose to follow. The age of Council supremacy was ending. The age of the frontier had begun, and humanity stood ready for whatever challenges and opportunities came next.